Hello and welcome to another Google Hangout. My name's Anne Hawkins and I'm here again today with some more inspiring entrepreneurs. And today we're going to be talking about well-being at work. Now, we all know it's absolute common sense that if we're well in our minds, our bodies, our mental state, as well as physically, and and the happiness factor and all the stuff that politicians talk about, then we're going to be better at work. We're going to be a lot more productive. And it seems that sort of common sense thing is now being proved by some research. So today we've got three guests who have done some research into this. And they're going to be talking to us about the findings of the questions that they asked some very interesting companies in Cambridge. So we'll say welcome to our guests first of all. So Kelly Drury from sorry, I'm mixing up the companies now. Kelly Drury from Talent Glue is a business psychologist. So hello, Kelly.
Hi, Anne. Hi. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much for joining us today. And our next guest is Richard Blount, who is from Coel.
Hi, Anne. Thanks very much for having me today.
That's okay. Richard, just tell us a bit about Coel, because it's not obvious from the name. What do you do?
Sure. Coel is the acronym for Cambridge Office Environments Limited. So we are a commercial interior specialist, so predominantly a fit-out organisation that do office furniture, space planning and design. So it's all a turnkey solution for companies that either are relocating or refurbishing their offices.
Okay, great, thanks. And then our final guest is Lizzie Duckworth from Cambridge Plant Interiors. I have to say, one of the most delightful places that I've been to visit in a long time. Hello, Lizzie.
Hi, Anne, and thank you for your lovely compliment. That's what we'd like everyone to think when they come and visit our office, so thank you.
Well, you're demonstrating some of your lovely plants behind you, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about those as we go along. But let's start, first of all, by talking about this piece of research that you've all done. So, first of all, why did you do it?
Well, initially, Anne, we met through another wellbeing talk, which Richard had organised with Kelly, and I approached Kelly, having been inspired by her talk, and said, I think we're repeating the same mantra. Obviously, plants in the workplace are a huge factor in well-being in the workplace as well. They purify the air, they're aesthetically pleasing, there are only positive effects, quite frankly. And I was very interested by what Kelly said about measures that people had put into their offices and wanted her to learn a little bit more about what we did and whether we could collaborate on anything in the future. Richard, we already work with in many ways on different projects. Obviously, we're both into maximising and enriching office environments.
Okay. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I was in London at the Google headquarters, and they're well known for all their wacky stuff, really bright colours, table tennis tables and bean bags, and their play area is quite extraordinary. So how does this sort of translate into the companies that you worked with? Are they all a bit on the wacky side?
No, we had a real mix of organisations. So we had over 70 different businesses in Cambridge take part in our research. And they came from all different sectors that reflect the industry in Cambridge, so technology businesses, manufacturing, scientific businesses, education, publishing, professional services, so a real mix of organisations. Some have sort of engaged with a similar environment to Google. It depends on the kind of people that they're trying to attract to their organisation. Whereas others were looking at how they attract certain kinds of knowledge workers, or they're working in the manufacturing sector and they've got a different requirement from the workforce as well. So they have some really, really interesting practices in the case study organisations that we've picked, which is why we've picked those organisations. They haven't all got slides. They don't all have pool tables. I think Google's offices are really delightful. But we're still, I think, as a city, we're still working on one or two of the playground type setups that places like Google have.
So is this type of thing that we're talking about, that you were looking at in your research, is it only important to the companies that are really struggling to attract the best talent?
I think really when we did the research, we were really conscious not to pigeonhole and go for companies that had maybe 1,000 staff, 6 floors, etc. And we really wanted to have a broad select. So we're lucky to get a lot of SMEs, and I think it just goes to show that yes, obviously all companies want to recruit the best people they have, but I think it's important that it's depending on the location and also the culture within the team. That team fit is crucial, and I think those aspects definitely contribute to better retention of staff, and that's come out in the research. So yes, obviously recruiting talent is important, but I think there's lots of facets involved.
Okay, so what were the most important findings you think that came out of the research that you did?
Well, we looked at well-being from 4 different perspectives. So there's one piece about how we actually go about maintaining our own well-being, our individual well-being in the workspace around us. We also looked at sort of managers' roles in sort of managing the working hours and the workloads of employees, as well as looking at the physical environment and things like the organisation culture. So our research covered all of those different areas and how those things all contribute to the way that the workplace is designed. I think from my perspective as a psychologist, I think one of the most interesting findings was about the difference in personality types and about how people use the workspace depending on whether they're extrovert or whether they're introverted in character. And we found that people that are very extrovert tend to feel greater well-being in an environment where they're able to spend time talking with other people. They like open plan offices, they like noise, whereas people that are introverted, where they have a good sense of well-being, they tend to have an environment that has more nature around them, and where they have a good relationship with their manager. And it was very striking how these different personality types had quite different needs from the work environment. And we found a few different things. So Lizzie, what did you think was really interesting?
Well, yeah, just picking up where Kelly's left off, actually, one of our interesting case studies was Spotify, who, for a company like us, are dream clients, because they literally went to their employees and said, tell us what you really want in your offices. And luckily for us, number one was plants. So they were highly innovative. They got us in, and our brief was really to create them a jungle. We went wild, we did big, we did small, we did colour, we went for it. And at the same time, they had an employee who was very good at artwork. And he came up with the notion of doing a mural. And it was starting with the beginning origins of Spotify. And it was like an artwork blog, which catalogued the direction Spotify was taking, you know, any new signings, a Lady Gaga release, for example. It would embrace the different multicultural factors. And our plants acted as a framework in between this mural. It was a very creative design, and every time you go there, you end up being drawn into what's happening on the walls, the plants, the artwork. And I thought the fact that they'd gone to their employees to get this inspiration was fantastic.
Richard, you keep popping up. What have you got to say about all this?
I mean, I think one of the other, interesting case studies we came across was with an architect company called Moses Cameron Williams, who are based in Cambridge, and I think they obviously work in a very old building, an old molting building, and they were founded in 2011. Do a lot of work in the education sector, so they have a very strong ethic from their directors on the mutual trust. So I think they really gear towards that family environment, trying to help their staff to offer various childcare vouchers or cycle to work schemes. But I think they recognise that their staff are working too hard or too long, that they have those measures in place to pick those up and obviously make people work at home or to go home and rest up, etc. So I think just having that ethic was very, very important. And when it comes to their office environment, they've got a lot of wooden furniture in there, a lot of green carpet, so the wooden finishes is really to emphasise the homely feel, and green is sort of seen as a very relaxing way, as a fresh outlook when it comes to the office environment. And then the open plan section of the building encouraged that collaboration between the team. Then they had access to green spaces and lovely views. And I think and they also were very big on having their lunches together and their teas and coffee breaks. And I think it's shown in the fact that in 3.5 years they've only had one person, member of staff, who's left. That was to pursue another education opportunity. So I think it does go to show it can work. Okay,
so let's look at the hard side of this. It's all very well to say we want people to feel good and look after their health and all that kind of stuff. But what does it do to the bottom line for these companies? It's not just about attracting and retaining the best talent. We know that recruiting is expensive, and you're saying it helps retain staff. But what does it do in terms of helping them to be more profitable and more productive?
So something that we found from the research was that it really, an organisation that has a culture that really engages authentic well-being practices tended to have much higher retention rates. People would recommend the organisation to others as an employer, and they'd also have a much greater sense of pride in the organisation as well. So there's a lot there around sort of employee engagement, but also there were part of our research looked at whether people were productive at work, whether they felt alert in the environment, and also about people's sense of resilience. So if an organisation's going through a lot of change, or people are needing to adapt to a fast-changing workplace, then the organisations that did have well-being in place for the workers tended to find that they had a much more positive and proactive workforce. So there was some real sort of bottom line things there. I mean, obviously, if people are staying with the organisation, they seem to be attractive. Then there's savings around costs of recruitment, costs of losing people, but also things like absenteeism as well. So that was something that came out of the research, was that people do have a high incidence of presenteeism in many organisations, where people are in the workplace or they're working on their mobile phones, and so we've kind of, many people have developed this always-on culture with our smartphones. We're working at 6 o'clock in the morning to check emails. We might be just picking up a few messages at 9 o'clock at night as well. So the research looked at the impact of those kinds of things too. So there's a whole variety of different issues for the organisation to consider that affects its performance.
Can I just add as well, Anne? You mentioned productivity quite a few times. And I don't know if you or anybody listening into this has seen the broadsheets earlier on this year. There was new research done which was released, which has been covered by many organisations, to show that companies who invest in plants are found to be 15% more productive than those that don't. And this goes totally against the sort of trend that was going towards a lean, mean office, and saying, actually, no, if you do make this small investment, the return is so much higher. It's a huge benefit.
I also could add on that there's a lot of economic statements that come out about the more productive workforces are because of less absenteeism, more productivity. That is proving that they get a better return on investment. So I think it's, as well as talking to human resources and facility directors, I think it's a very important message to finance directors that with the right investments, they can see an increase of productivity, but B, a better return on investment as well.
And does your piece of research actually go into that, or are you referencing other pieces of work?
We have included these kinds of things in our research. So what we've done is look at where people are saying that they feel productive, or they'd recommend the organisation, or they feel that they're creative in their work environment. We've then looked at the factors that are are in the workplace for those kinds of people compared to others. So we're able to look and model at what's actually happening in that work environment that's making those people feel more creative or productive.
Okay, and Kelly, you mentioned earlier the differences between introverts and extroverts, and
Yes.
you know, I'm really, really aware of that. You know, having my own space here, and I've worked like this for 20 years. I love it. How do you match those two things up? You know, you can't have a company full of introverts or extroverts. So how do you get them to work together and make it a comfortable environment for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. If you've got a company full of extroverts or introverts, then I think that creates its own challenges for the organisation. I mean, what we've found from our research, and then also other businesses are looking at this kind of thing as well, is the need to have different areas in the organisation where people can go and spend time, collaborate together. The more homely and relaxed that feels, the more creative people might feel, or the more sociable they are. So on-site cafes or sort of breakout spaces are an important part of a typical workplace now. But also for people that perhaps are very introverted, there's that they're more interested in having a space where they can go and they can concentrate. There's somewhere quiet that's away from everybody else. So it's quite different to the open plan office that many organisations have embraced over the last few years. So I think the key point about those two different personality types is having the choice of the space about where you can go. So where we've typically had open office and sort of very standardised desks, there's more there about people being able to choose where they go and spend their time depending on the task that they have at hand. One thing that we did find from the research as well was that some people sort of spent time at home working on certain kinds of tasks. So where they needed to concentrate, perhaps write reports or prepare a presentation, and then they spent more time in the office, in the workplace, collaborating, having team meetings, and sort of spending that social time with other people. So there's something there about how we do work where.
Mm. Yes, one of the things that came out when we were at the Google presentation at the Atmosphere thing was that you know, work isn't somewhere you go to anymore. Work happens wherever you happen to be, and you know, with all the cloud applications and all that kind of thing. So, given that this is the trend and most likely is still to keep increasing, given the technology and also the cost of real estate, you know, why would people invest in real estate if they don't need to? Do you see that this is something that is likely to become more important, or is it something that people are going to disseminate and take into their working space wherever they are? So even a home office, you know, this does become even more important than it ever has been.
I think that our work is more integrated into our life wherever that is. So being able to have space where we feel comfortable and that fits with the expectations of us in terms of what our work and what the tasks are that we're trying to achieve. Finding comfort in that space wherever that is, I think that is increasingly important. And where employers traditionally have expected everybody to come to a workplace, perhaps work 9 to 5 hours, then it's almost being flipped on its head in that sense. So yes, I think it is more important to think about these design issues.
Yeah.
If I can just go back to your original kind compliment, Anne, about saying how nice the office was our office when you came to visit it. I think if every office just thought, let's create an environment where people want to be, then automatically you're going to make it a desirable place for employees to go to. To me, it's common sense. You know, you create your home in the way that you most want it to be. I think more employers need to look at that, and then they will get a better output from their employees. If it's a pleasant environment which is conducive to work and communication, then it's only going to bring good returns.
And I also think that we do get clients who get it, and there's other people who need that. Teach people to suck eggs, but I think some people do need to be educated a bit more, and I think it's find that light bulb moment with that any office, and when they can see what difference it can make, then hopefully they'll see it's a bit of a no-brainer for a small investment.
Yeah.
Just to add to what Richard was saying, one thing that's we've found as well is that the return on the investment is quite clear in terms of certain things that you can do. So, for example, PwC published some research recently that demonstrated that you get a £34 return on every pound that you spend on certain wellbeing initiatives. So it's just thinking about how you invest in order to get higher productivity from people. And I think one thing that's quite challenging for organisations putting business cases together is they don't necessarily measure what it is that they're trying to improve with well-being. So we know that good furniture, nice environments, they all make sense to have. But in terms of getting that return from the organisation, we need to somehow link the initiatives that we put in place with the performance and yes, what impact it has on the organisation.
Yes, you probably saw my wry grin as soon as you started talking about measurement. Wearing my business mentor hat, that is the first place we start. How do you know that anything's improved unless you know exactly what you're measuring and where you're starting from? That's a really good point. But I also think just getting this into the sort of psyche of businesses. And the quote that you mentioned from PwC, £1 spent brings a £34 return, and given that people could go back and find that, and it's obviously genuine, but just being able to talk about that in such simple terms, I think is what's really going to make a difference, isn't it?
It is, and it's a complicated thing, isn't it? So we talk about sort of retention, we talk about people feeling more engaged or more productive, but it's quite hard to measure it and prove that there's a direct cause or direct causal link between the two. But so much of our research shows that there are those links there, that there are certain trends in the environment. So it's something that businesses definitely do need to measure, and certainly with the case study organisations that we've been into, 2 or 3 of them were really good at making setting out an initial cost-neutral initiative, perhaps changing the health insurance that they have access to, so things that didn't actually cost the business new money, and then gradually as the culture started to sort of focus more and more on well-being, they started to get that investment as they started to demonstrate that there was benefits to the organisation. So there's gradual steps that we can take in organisations to help them sort of build on their engagement and well-being practices.
Okay. Yeah, actually, just to add something to what Kelly's saying, one of the organisations we went to incorporated quite a few added benefits for employees, such as massage or reflexology. And the key there was, whilst some people wouldn't be into it and others would, say yoga classes as well and things like that, it did increase communication amongst everyone because they kept on going back. Did you enjoy that? Do you have a suggestion for something else that you would enjoy? So even if it wasn't something everyone was taking part in, they were all talking. All these different departments were now communicating and finding something that they could do together, build team spirit. And to me, that was a brilliant way of bringing people together and getting the sort of ranks to mix up a little bit.
We've talked about the very big companies, who obviously get this and are really switched on to it and they understand it. for whatever reasons. They may have done the measurement, or they may just feel it's a good thing to do. And we've talked about people in home offices who obviously have autonomy and complete choice and are able to do their own thing. What about the small businesses in the middle? What about the companies, the huge number of, I think it's 95% of businesses in this country employ fewer than 5 people. So how do you see it working there? Is it something that people really are going to have to take notice of, or are they always going to be able to say, well, you know what, we're offering people a job, if they don't like it, they can go somewhere else?
I think it is a challenge, and I think it's that, obviously we appreciate that if smaller businesses, they've got 4 or 5 people, they've got enough on their plates, but I think it's conveying the message in simple terms to show what can be done, and people don't need to go mad and spend copious amounts of money, but I think just a few subtle changes. And I think for a small business owner, I think to them it's more important that they are spending less money on things like recruitment, worrying about absenteeism. So it's just trying to find a simple message to get to these people, and I think hopefully they will see the benefits to them, and it surely can only help their business flourish even more.
Yeah, good. Let's hope so, because as we started off saying, it does seem like common sense, but then you do have situations where you do need to make the financial proposal and make sure that people understand why it works. So that's been absolutely fantastic. So any last words that you'd like to leave us with before we go?
Well, I think, just to reiterate what Richard was saying, you can incorporate well-being on a different scale. You don't have to go all out there, and spend a fortune. It's all about being mindful, communication with your employees, asking them what they want, what they appreciate in the working place, listening, and then trying to incorporate as much of that as possible. It's all possible. You don't have to be a large company. You don't have to have a huge budget. You just need to have good communication and be willing.
I think being willing is an interesting one, isn't it? I don't know whether your research threw up any of this, but was there anything about the employees themselves? We've all had that situation where someone brings cheese and onion crisps or something like that, or leaves dirty coffee cups around and annoys everybody else. So was there anything about how you get people on the same page with this, how people treat each other as adults and take responsibility for not only for their own well-being but for the well-being of those around them too?
Yes, I think it's one of the things that definitely came out of the research was about there are various frustrations that people can have sharing the immediate space around them with each other, but there was a real benefit to the workplace. So people come in to spend time with each other, and the whole is greater than the sum of its bits kind of thing is really relevant in the workplace. And I think we're a long way from everybody working from a home office, and that's the way that business is generally going to be in, say, 20 years' time. There's really something about the social time that we spend with each other and how we collaborate together to achieve a variety of goals, whatever sector we're in. So I think that's something that really did leap out of the results that we had.
Okay. Any last words from you, Richard?
I completely agree with what Lizzie said a moment ago, but I think for me it's just good to see that for something so important to well-being, that as well as on a personal level but also on a business level, people are engaging, and I think no matter who you ask in any walk of life, they've got an opinion, and I think it can only be a good thing that we're debating it more now than we ever have.
Yeah, people really want to be taken notice of, don't they, in a way that's never happened before, and almost demanding it.
Yes, yeah, totally agree.
Okay.
Can I just add one final thought as well, Anne? And that's just the physical environment of the workplace. communicates so much about what an employer thinks of its workforce. It's part of the brand, a part of how a business kind of communicates with its people. And from all of the case studies that we've involved in the research, they've all been very, very good at using that physical space around them to reinforce positive things about what they do as an organisation, how people should trust them, the kind of things that are important to them. And so, investing in plants or furniture or technology that works, or access to facilities remotely, they all say a lot about where the organisation thinks it should invest its efforts. So I think that that's a key part of the investment in a wellbeing initiative as well.
Yes, it's one of the things that impressed me most when I started reading your report, was that you started with the business of that culture is paramount. And the biggest part of that culture is about people being trusted and feeling valued. Mm-hmm. And all of this stuff just feeds into that, doesn't it? And helps reinforce those messages.
Absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
So, Kelly, Lizzie, Richard, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing all that information. What I'll do when the video goes onto YouTube is to put all of your websites on there so that people can contact you if they want to. But where can they find your research if they want to look into that and find out exactly how it all happened?
So we'll be publishing the research jointly in a few weeks' time. People will be able to get access to a copy quite easily from my website at Talent Glue, and they can follow links from the homepage straight through to find a copy of the report.
Okay, and if people want to get in touch with you before then and say, will you email me a copy of the report when it's due, what would you recommend do?
So they can contact any of us, but if they go to any of our websites, they'll be able to find contact details for any of the three of us on those sites. They can contact me at kelly@talentglue.com if you want a simple email address for everybody to go to.
Okay, that's lovely. So once again, thank you all very much for joining us today. That was terrific, and I'm sure we'll come back to this topic because it's only going to get more and more interesting as time goes on. But for now, thanks very much.
Thank you, Anne.
Thanks, Anne.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.